Minnesota, and he has given a press conference. I want to play some clips for you today and remind our listening friends what this is really all about. This whole immigration debate is about multiple things. Multiple things. Remember, a part of it is the Cloward-Piven strategy of overwhelming the system and collapsing us from within. Do you guys feel like the U.S. currency is about to collapse? Are you seeing it take a sharp dive? Indeed. Well, and President Trump says he's fine with that because he wants to encourage, apparently, exports, manufacturing here, jobs here, and folks can come where their currencies are stronger and their currencies will buy more things in our market. And, you know, that's a nice idea in one way, but I'm not for it. Because I'm not a Keynesian economist. I don't believe in debasement of one's currency. I don't believe in unlimited debt. I believe in a currency that is backed by something, a hard asset like gold or silver. I don't believe in fiat currencies. The world is losing trust in the American dollar. And one reason why we have lost on the American dollar, by the way, as gold today is at 5,300 and something. It hit 5,500 last night before a pullback, but still, that's pretty high, folks. Some of our guys weren't predicting $5,300 gold for a few more months, but here we are. Silver is at $114. I think it hit $122 before a pullback. The world is losing confidence in the world reserve currency, the U.S. dollar, which has been the peg since Nixon closed the gold window and worked a deal with Saudi Arabia to peg it to the price of oil, the petrodollar. They're losing hope in it. They see what's happening. And the fraud, the waste, it's much worse than people know. In fact, I have a brand new article I just put up at worldviewreport.com by heartland.org. The fraud is worse than you ever imagined. I want to get into this, but I also want to play some clips because I want to show you, play some clips by Tom Homan. I want to talk about Minnesota, the history of Minnesota, why that's the perfect launching ground for this civil war that they are attempting. There is a well-known actor. You may not know him by name. I don't know him by name, but I recognized him when I saw the clip today. More and more of them in Hollywood and in politics are calling for basically a civil war in America. It reminds me so much, and someone the other day said, Brandon, it's time to go through Prairie Fire again, the manifesto of the Weather Underground. A lot of people aren't familiar with it. You have a lot of new listeners. You know what? You're right about that, and your host often struggles with how much to repeat. But we have to remember we are a classroom as much as anything, and we're always adding new students. And a lot of the students, they don't know the things that so many of you alumni know. But I would encourage you to go look up online. You'll find it. Prairie Fire, subtitled The Politics of the Revolutionary Anti-Imperialism. The imperialists are Americans. The Revolution, 1974, Weather Underground, Domestic Terrorists. And when you read their 1974 manifesto, it reads like today, folks, pro-PLO, pro-China, pro-Mao, anti-capitalist, burn down the system, destroy it. Immigration is racist. Christians, capitalism, the scourge. Nothing's new under the sun. It just keeps getting repackaged. To me, these people from the Weather Underground era made it into politics, and some say even helped put Barack Obama in the White House. So this whole immigration debate is to accomplish many things. But the massive fraud that's being carried out by immigration is part of the Cloward-Piven strategy. Remember Francis Fox Piven, Cloward and Piven, husband and wife. I think they taught at Columbia. He's dead. I think she might still be alive. Someone can fact check that. She was a year or two ago. Old as Moses now. But their idea was to overwhelm the budgets of like New York City. Overwhelm the budgets with welfare recipients and entitlements and programs until you collapse it, and then you have to nationalize it. And they're doing that on a national level. Well, this article to Homeland shows you how far we've come with debasing our dollar, printing money to expand the size of government and social programs to the point that now the world doesn't trust the dollar. Who wants to hold something that's losing its purchasing power? And they're going to, and this is going on with fiat currencies around the world. So the central banks are loading up on gold. Isn't that interesting? The central banks, private bankers given charters by their respective nations, like the Federal Reserve, 1913, a group of private banks given a federal charter, wholly unconstitutional. Andrew Jackson did away with a central bank in his time, got censored for it. We got another one, 1913. It's destroyed the country. Everything they said it was going to do, it's done the exact opposite. Stop bank failures, stop inflation. All the things they said it was going to do, it's done the exact opposite. They always lie to you, folks. They always lie to you. And so the central banks are loading up on gold all over the world. Investors know what's coming. And part of this is because of the massive expansion of the dollar, just printing it digitally, as well as on paper, to the point they could expand socialism, redistribution of wealth, Frederick Bastiat's The Law. Politicians get into power for either philanthropic purposes, that's plunder, or the other plunder for themselves and their friends. And now we realize that a lot of this has been about plundering for non-government organizations, nonprofits, and the money gets kicked back to the candidates. The people voting on the laws that allow this, the money gets kicked back to either their friends who then contribute to their campaign, or to their organizations and they contribute to their campaign, or to their contracting friends who kick back to their campaign, or who reward their spouse or children or them later after they're out of office with high-paying jobs where they do nothing. Money laundering at the highest levels. Heartland.org writes, U.S. taxpayers have been victimized by at least $36 billion and possibly as much as $3 trillion in fraud through federal government entitlement programs since 2020. Folks, that's just since the year 2020. $36 billion, but perhaps as high as $3 trillion. Are you better off today than you were 5 years ago? That was the line by Ronald Reagan. Are you better off today than you were 4 years ago under the policies of Jimmy Carter? Well, let me ask you, my friends, are you better off today than you were in 2020? But I'm not just talking financially. Are you better off today in the exercise of your First Amendment, free speech, freedom of religion, private property? How about your property tax? What's your property tax done the last 5 years, my friends? We've done a lot of programming with Mitch Wexler on property tax and how it's set by these boards, and every one of your communities have these little central authorities that determine your property tax. What I didn't learn until I interviewed him was he says that little board, that little authority that decides that is owned by the school district. So the school district says, here's how much money we need. And then they tell the little authority they've organized that says property tax, here's how much we need. Now go make the numbers work. And that's why your property tax and your home values have been put at inflationary prices that don't really match reality. We're watching gold and silver skyrocket. You would think that the housing market, being a hard asset, would also be going up. But as I discussed last night with Michael Weiner, they're not going up to the degree relative to the decline of the dollar because they were already inflated. They were already inflated, the average house, due to, at one point, supply and demand, giving people homes and loans for homes they could not afford, cheap money. So supply and demand kicked in. Too many people trying to grab up the supply, people that shouldn't have even had the homes to start with, but cheap money and zero interest loans, etc. But then you also have the issue of these school authorities setting home value prices high to justify high taxes. So Mitch says it's because they're trying to back the bonds, the school bonds. They put out school bonds and they need more money to pay off the people and pay the interest that they already established. And so it's bad money, good money chasing bad money. It's bringing in more to keep it afloat. This is a Ponzi scheme. That in itself is said to be over $17 trillion that very few people are talking about. We're one of the few people talking about it, thanks to Mitch. So are you better off than you were since in 2020? This whole immigration thing is not just about expanding the welfare rolls, collapsing the system. It's about more than that. It's also about voters. It's about bringing in people to vote so they don't have to worry about voter fraud. And yes, I was glad to see the FBI raided the Fulton County voting center there in Georgia. Had Garland Favorito on last night talking about that. Garland, of course, has been fighting this for years and years. And we'll see what comes of that. But they won't have to rely on voting and ballots and computers if they get all of these illegals registered to vote. Let me remind you of what the head of the SES back in 2000, I believe this was back in 2012, he said this. I think this was in 2012. And I have played this so many times. No, it was actually, I think, 2010. 2010. Wow, where's the time gone? Alicio Medina, I've played this so many times, audio and video on radio, TV programs, telling the audience that we can win every election by getting these folks registered to vote. Let me play a little of this for you. Listen.
Going to go away because their involvement is basically because they feel that they are being taken advantage of, they are being singled out, and they are being scapegoated. Now, when they voted in November, they voted overwhelmingly for progressive candidates.
Talking about Hispanics. They voted overwhelmingly, he says, for progressive candidates.
Barack Obama got 2 out of every 3 voters that showed up. And so I think there's 2 things, very quickly, that matter for the progressive community. Number 1, if we are to expand this electorate to win, the progressive community needs to solidly be on the side of immigrants. That will solidify and expand the progressive coalition for the future. And let me tell you, when you are in the middle of a fight for your life, you will remember who was there with you. And immigrants count on progressives to be able to do that. Number 2, we reformed the immigration laws. It puts 12 million people on the path to citizenship and eventually voters. Can you imagine if we have even the same ratio, 2 out of 3, if we have 8 million new voters that care about our issues and will be voting, we will create a governing coalition for the long term, not just for an election cycle.
There you go, 12 million. If they can put those 12 million on the voter rolls, all right, then they can win all these elections. It's about collapsing the economy. It's about voting. And it's about more than that. That's just 2. We'll be right back.
Now, I see the future. And let me tell you.
Introducing the Sentry Wellness System, the ultimate under-sink water treatment solution designed with you in mind. Say goodbye to harmful toxins and hello to water enriched with essential nutrients like calcium and magnesium. Enjoy the benefits of increased pH for on-demand alkalinity. All from a zero-waste system that fits seamlessly into your home. Installation is a breeze, taking just 15 minutes, so you can have clean, healthy, great-tasting water straight from your tap. Perfect for apartments, homes, rentals, and even RVs. Elevate your hydration and well-being with the Sentry Wellness System because you deserve the best in every drop.
Sentry H2O. Tap into wellness.
All right, welcome back. Glad you're with us. Worldview Radio, our website, worldviewradio.com. This immigration, the weaponization of immigration, is for multiple purposes we've already been discussing here today. One of them is, of course, I believe, to collapse the system and bring about a socialist system, the Cloward-Piven strategy, overwhelm the system, collapse the system, and then you can start nationalizing things. We're seeing that. It's about voters. Alicio Medina said, I think it was back in 2010, if we can get 12 million immigrants on the rolls, we can win every progressive election here on out. So it's about creating voters. And of course, thus, then the progressives can rule. It'd be a one-party system. Now, let me ask you something, guys. At what point are we as Americans going to sit here and let them do this? And then after they've done everything I'm telling you they're doing, and after they've been successful, are you prepared then to let them take your house, throw you in prison for exercising your freedom of speech, steal your property, steal your hard work? Are you prepared to honor that as a legitimate government? Because see, everybody's running around, the progressives, talking about, this is an illegitimate government we have now. Well, all indications are it was actually a free and fair election. People voted for President Trump. Many of them, according to the polls, want this to continue, removing illegals out of the country. Maybe they are more prone to wanting the most the hardcore folks that are creating crime and violence and rape out first, but they want illegals out. That's what the polls are showing now. Now, they may be able to sway people with enough brainwashing and emotionalism. But this is what a duly elected president was asked by the voters to do. Now, if they are successful with the Uniparty, and they're working on right now the SAVE Act, which means, we're hearing from John Thune and others that there's going to be a vote on this, and I pray there is. Senator Scott of Florida saying there's going to be a vote on this, and and who wouldn't want the SAVE Act? Why would you not want that? What is that if you don't know? You're going to have to show up and show an ID. You're going to have to show an ID that you're a U.S. citizen. You're going to have to show you're registered to vote. So he can stop all these people from showing up and being involved in voter fraud. Why would you not want that? Only reason you wouldn't is because you want to carry out a revolution, a coup in the country. And if they are successful in doing the things we're talking about, how many Americans are going to say, oh, well, that's the law. That's the law. That's the government. We have to obey them. Or are we going to be prepared to say, no, we know exactly how this happened. We have guys like Brandon House, Trevor Loudon, Bill Federer, and many others that have been telling us for years how they were going to do this. And this is not a legitimate government. They let people vote that shouldn't be voting. They legalized a bunch of people that should have never been legalized for the stated purpose a decade plus in advance that they were going to do this and steal every election and go to a one-party system. This is not a legitimate government. They got it by criminal activity, and we're not complying. Now, the question is, how many states would have enough people in power that have the common sense to understand this? I mean, most of them that are in our legislatures, I'm sorry, they have the attention span to read the little piece of paper in a fortune cookie. It's about the mentality of their attention span. Let me tell you something. We have a lot of people in the conservative movement that haven't cracked a book in years. Ask them, what's the last book you read? Actually, you should ask them, what's the last books, plural? Because any leader should be consuming large amounts of information and data by reading books. And if not books, how about reports? Have you read The Weather Underground? Have you printed out the 1974 document, The Weather Underground, and read it? Have you read the Chinese document from 1999, Unrestricted Warfare? They wouldn't even know what we're talking about. One conservative guy called me up one day and said, who's this Hezbollah guy? It's not a guy, it's a terrorist organization. I'm telling you how they're going to carry it out, and the Uniparty is going to help them do it. And then when folks start having all of their liberties and freedoms and parental authority stolen, watch all the pastors in America who've been brainwashed by a perverted twisting of Romans 13 that tell you it's your obligation to obey. Watch all the members of the state legislature that say, well, there's nothing we can do about it. You know what's really ironic is they're in the streets right now violating legitimate federal law. The president has a right to get illegals out of this country according to the Constitution. The executive branch has the right to do this. He's the chief law enforcement official. And they're in the streets and they're trying to convince people that somehow this is lawlessness. The insurrectionists are trying to teach you and tell you that they're the ones that are lawful. But if the shoe were on the other foot and we're 10 years down the road and they have stolen the elections by flooding immigrants, letting them vote by machines or ballots or by immigrants voting that shouldn't be voting, and they go to a one-party system and they start implementing one piece of legislation after another, stacking the Supreme Court, then when we stand up and say, this is a violation of the moral law, the laws of nature, nature's God, the Constitution, our organic documents, we will be called the insurrectionists. Right now, the insurrectionists, the real insurrectionists in the streets, and those that are doing what they're doing are being lauded as somehow moral. It's always psychological projection, always. They put onto us what is really true about them. But if we were to stand up against real abuses by a federal government that have been fully captured by the communists, most of your state legislators and most of your pastors would be their lapdogs. Here is one such case, New York Post. Self-described Antifa agitator issues chilling call for armed mob to end Minneapolis ICE operations. Isn't that interesting? Antifa. Anti-fascist. You know, Antifa was around during Hitler's day. You know that, right? You know what's really interesting about this happening in Minnesota is that Minnesota was really the birthplace here in the Twin Cities, here in America for Antifa. Did you guys know that? I went and researched that today. Look at this. This is a group called KFAI, KFAI.org, 90.3 FM in the Twin Cities. Obviously, it must be a radio station of some kind. And it says, in the days after Minneapolis police killed George Floyd, youth-led protests in the city sparked rebellions around the globe. I'm going to skip down. Anti-Racist Action, ARA. That's what it was called. Anti-Racist Action, ARA. It started in Minneapolis and is a predecessor to the crews often now called Antifa. I even asked one of the AIs if this is true, just to see what they would say. And the AI said, yeah, that's true. ARA, Anti-Racist Action, started in 1987 with a multiracial group of teenage skinheads who fought the rising white power movement. It grew into a network of groups at least 120 towns and cities across the U.S. and Canada. ARA's first principle was, quote, we go to where they go, never let the Nazis have the streets, end quote. They eventually applied that not only to white power organizing, but to homophobic and anti-abortion organizing and to police violence, which they saw as all connected. How many of you knew that Antifa in America kind of really came to life in 1987 in Minnesota? There's a reason Minnesota has been the launch pad for what's happening now. They had the governor in place they needed. They have the attorney general, Keith Ellison, they need. And they have the community organizers they need. They've been at this a very long time. I even asked Chat, just for giggles, I asked Chat GTP or whatever is Yahoo, whatever Yahoo's, I don't know, is Yahoo Chat GTP, guys? Is that what Yahoo is? I don't know. I don't really care. But I asked whatever Yahoo's little chat is, or their little AI is, I asked him about Minnesota's communist history. Here's what even Yahoo spit out. Carl Nygaard, elected in 1932, he became the first communist mayor in the United States in Crosby, Minnesota. Crosby, Minnesota, the first communist mayor in the United States, 1932. His election was a significant event in the context of the state's radical political landscape. Farm Labor Party. Minnesota saw the rise of the Farm Labor Party, which attracted many leftist activists, including Nygaard, who later worked with Minnesota Highway Department. You see, the Farm Labor Party really are your communists, and they came on board with the Democrats for the Farm Labor Party. Now it's called the DFL, Democrat Farm Labor Party. Communism in Minnesota was far advancing than in most of the states in the U.S. Remember, they elected their first communist mayor in the United States was in Crosby, Minnesota, 1932. Let's not forget about Gus Hall, the communist president, Gus Hall, who was from Minnesota, ran for president in the 1970s and 80s from Minnesota. You've got a governor there, Walz, who many say is a national security threat at many levels and his ties to the CCP. The split of the American Socialist Party in 1919 led to the formation of distinct factions within many Scandinavian socialists in Minnesota aligning with the communists. I didn't get this from a right-wing so-called website. I just asked Yahoo's AI, is it true Minnesota has a long history of communism? And that's what it put out. So to anyone thinking I'm spewing right-wing talking points from some blog, I asked the beloved Yahoo just to see what their AI would say. And I don't have to know what their AI says to know this is all true, because I have done this kind of homework and research and programming with people like Trevor Loudon. I know it to be true. So isn't it interesting they chose Minnesota as the launching ground for this? So why are we having this weaponization of immigration? We've already said it is for collapsing the currency, welfare, entitlement, expansion. It is for voters. It is to stir up more recruits for communism. And they really need to grab the middle class. And so they use all of this controversy to stir up more recruits, which include the middle class. They must, if communism is to win, they must grab the hearts of the middle class children. And they've done that. They've fallen over into their hand like overripe fruit, as Khrushchev warned. They're also doing the illegal immigration, I believe, for digital IDs. That's going to be one of many solutions, many manufactured problems. Oh, we can't be taking people out of here who've been here 20 years. We've got people like Sean Hannity talking like this now. We've got Newt Gingrich talking like this. We've got Joe Rogan interviewing Rand Paul talking like this. Well, how do you do that? IDs.
News is moving faster than ever, and so are we. Worldview Tube brings you 24/7 live stream coverage and now real-time alerts when it matters most. Once you have the Worldview Tube app installed, exit the app and navigate your way to Settings. In Settings, locate the tab labeled Notifications. Select the Notifications tab. Scroll down until you locate the Worldview Tube app icon. Select the tab, and here you can turn on and customize your notification experience for the Worldview Tube app. News doesn't wait, and neither should you. Turn on push notifications to stay informed. Every headline as it happens.
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of Worldview books, documentaries, research, high-profile interviews, and the radio and television broadcasts of Brannon House.
All right, welcome back. Glad you're with us. Worldview Radio, our website, worldviewradio.com. We're discussing really why the weaponization of immigration. There are many reasons. I asked someone on my team if they would check if Frances Fox Piven is still alive. The old bat is still alive. She was born in 1932. She's still alive. According to Jill, my editor, who went and checked. What does that make her? 94 years old? Her husband, I guess, he died in, I think, 2021. No, 2001. He died in 2001. So Frances is still around. And Frances was writing articles after Obama was elected. I remember reading one stating that now that we have him elected, he needs a protest movement behind him. Now that he's elected, we need a protest movement behind him. Obama. Pressure from above, pressure from below. So we've said that they're weaponizing immigration for collapse of the American dollar, the collapse of our economies, local, state, federal, as we know. They want more voters. They want to have a movement that will capture the hearts of the middle-class children. They want it for globalism. You have to have the end. In my documentary Sabotage in 2018, I openly talked about the border crisis was about destroying sovereignty and destroying our sovereignty and then portraying the law as oppressive. Isn't it interesting? The source of all suffering and oppression is Christianity and capitalism. The oppression is always those who are believers in truth, absolute truth. The law rooted in the character nature of God, the moral law, laws of nature, nature is God. Those who are always castigated as the oppressors are those who believe in universal truth for all times, all people, all places. The liberators are those who believe in lies and who are really, at the end of the day, mass murderers. Your liberators are mass murderers. They're portrayed as those that are moral and for justice and equity and equality. Those are all lies. Because when we have one communist revolution after another, the street fighters, the useful idiots are always the first to be executed because when they realize they didn't get what they were promised, they scream too loud and they get taken out. That's what happened even in Iran when the MEK, who even served as the bodyguards for the Ayatollah, when they didn't get to share power, they're like, what? And MEK and the supreme leader went to war with each other, and he imprisoned and killed a bunch of them. This happens in Islamic regimes, Marxist regimes, but the mass murderers are always the ones presented as bearing truth, morality, justice, quality, equity. And those who oppose it are the ones that are presented as the liars, the oppressors. But yet, when the useful idiots finally realize who it is that's right, who do they run to for protection? Historically, and I can share individual testimonies, they run to the conservatives or the Christians for protection. The ones they once bemoaned, they run to for protection. Literally, hide me out. Why are you knocking on my door? Because I know as a Christian, you're obligated to protect me because of your belief in the sanctity of life. This is about globalism, the destruction of borders, but claiming that the laws are oppressive. And it's racist to have borders. Borders are racist, don't you know? And we know that this is a propaganda campaign, and Yuri Bezmenov, the former KGB officer, warned us about this. Those clips are in my documentary, Sabotage, from 2018. You don't need to buy it. You do not need to buy it. You don't need to buy any of my documentaries. You don't need to buy any of my books. When was the last time you ever heard a documentarian and author tell you, you don't need to buy my books? You don't need to buy my documentaries. Well, you don't, because for as little as like $7.99 a month, you can get all of it. If you want to join the vault, you'll have access to all of this. And we are about to roll out an updated search engine, because I'm as frustrated as anybody else that our search engine is horrible. But it's coming, a brand new search engine that is tied to these massive servers we've built. And I'm supposed to have seen a demo of that the other day, but we had a little bit of an issue with our IT guy who had to go to the doctor. And he had to go back to the doctor, I'm told, today. So hopefully I'll see this little demonstration that one of my IT guys has already seen and said, you won't believe it, Mr. House. You won't believe how you can find all of your work and research of 36 years with this new system. So I'm waiting. But there's there is 36 years of research there in that vault, worldviewtube.com/vault. And in that documentary in 2018, I talked about the former KGB officer, expert on propaganda, Yuri Bezmenov, talking about the stages: demoralization, demoralize, destabilize, chaos, and the new norm. Demoralize. What does that mean? It means to change the perception of reality. To change the perception of reality. Demoralize. Isn't that what Satan did in Genesis 3 in the garden? Convince Eve that reality wasn't true? Did God really say? And now you have people so demoralized that they will not believe the truth, even when confronted with it. Demoralize. Destabilize. Now, you see this in the attack of our economy, the destabilization now in our economy, which makes more people, listen to what I'm telling you now, which makes more people dissatisfied because they've been told that, see, capitalism has failed. This is not capitalism. We haven't had the free market system in our country since 1913, at least 1913. Certainly when they gave us the Federal Reserve that started to manipulate our currency. And then when you close the gold window and you just print all the money you want, create all the digits you want, that's Keynesian economics, that's inflation, that's hidden tax, that's theft. This is not a free market system. And now, of course, we've had, and it really got underway during the George W. Bush administration, the rise of the public-private partnerships, communitarianism, big government, big business. It's been around for a while, but really got going under Bush, George W. It was going under Clinton, to be fair, too. I mean, it's been going on for decades. The military-industrial complex, private companies working with the military. And so then we go to war. And we use wars to cover a lot of things and enrich ourselves. It's been going on a long time, but it really has picked up in my lifetime. And it's called the free market. This is not the free market. But as they collapse this system and go to war with the economy, they convince a lot of even middle class young people, you see, capitalism doesn't work. Are you better off now than you were 5 years ago? Well, see, that's because capitalism doesn't work. It's unfair. It's unjust. Then they convince them if we just set the right environment, then people will be good, because that's the lie of humanism. Man is ultimately good. Put him in the right environment, he'll do most of the time what's right, because man is ultimately good. That's what humanism says. Of course, the Bible says all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. The prophet Jeremiah, the heart is desperately wicked above all else. Who can know it? I was conceived in sin. Demoralize, change the perception of reality. Destabilize, go to war against the economy, against the family, against the church. Go to war against constitutional government. And of course, that creates a crisis, chaos. And then out of the crisis or the chaos comes the new norm. Yuri warned about these things. Now, as I said before the break, you've got many people today saying, Newt Gingrich now, in the last few hours, Rand Paul, Sean Hannity, many people saying, well, we just can't, we need to really rethink this. And Rand Paul is saying, look, let's not give them citizenship. If you've been here for all these years and you have been paying taxes and you haven't been creating crime other than your crime of the illegal act of coming here, but if other than that you've been a good citizen, there's no reason to ship them back. But you're not going to get the right to vote. You can't be on any welfare. Well, how are you going to track that, folks? Digital ID. That's why I did the show in January of 2020 on the UN conference called ID 2020. The UN has been pushing this. Major corporations, Bill Gates, Gavi, the vaccine people, and their primary reason they said then was, and it's in my vault, worldviewtube.com/vault, just put in ID 2020, you'll see the show, and I showed all the screenshots of the websites, and their primary purpose for pushing it, they said, was for borders, stopping fraud with welfare programs and people getting on entitlement programs that don't deserve it, fraud, immigration, people can go back and forth. Oh, yeah. We're going to end up with much of what they want, digital ID, through the weaponization of this immigration. And then, of course, another reason they've done this is to, as we've already said, to attack the culture, to attack the institutions ordained by God, family, church, and constitutional government. Those things are all now deemed as evil. The source of all suffering is oppression. The source of all suffering and oppression is Christianity and capitalism. So most Americans are seeing this immigration issue as a single issue. It is a multi-front war to collapse the republic as we know it. Now, thankfully, Tom Homan has arrived, and I said to my wife when that little guy was running around out there at a central casting, I said, why don't they send a guy that's more of an older guy, a statesman with a suit on? And he has now arrived. By the way, one of Holman's guys texted me last night, and they're working hard. And they wanted to make sure I'd seen the video, the second video that had just come out of this nurse kicking the back of a ICE vehicle on January 13th, dropping all kinds of curse words and spitting. And they wrestled him to the ground, and we can see what appears to be a gun in his waistband then. And I don't know why they didn't arrest him and take him off. Maybe the crowd was just getting too unruly and they got out. But this guy is not this innocent nurse that took care of military vets that we've been led to believe. And his own parents told him, don't go out there and tangle with these people. Yeah, you have a Second Amendment right to protest with a gun on, unless you're in a gun-free area. And even then, some would say, well, that's unconstitutional to have those zones. Well, okay. But reality is sometimes they set up tape and whatnot, and you can't go in there because they've got the president coming in or the vice president or a high-ranking official, and they have a gun-free area set up. But yeah, he had the right to go out there and do that. But was that the smart thing to do if you knew you were going to probably tangle with these people? No, it's a great way to get shot because you're confusing and throwing off these people. Was there some poor training? Absolutely. I bet you $1 to donuts, and I would love to see the books on some of these guys they've hired, these bounty hunters, to see how many police departments these guys have been kicked off of. There may be a reason they were offering such huge bonuses. Who wants that job in the first place? But even Tom Homan's saying, we're not backing down. Things have not been done right. And he's not there for a photo op, Kristi Noem. We'll be right back. Go to worldviewtalk.com. Get your satellite phone like I have, because you know what? China is in on our power grid. That is a matter of proven fact. If you want to have communications with your loved ones, your family, your children, maybe your spouse travels, maybe you have a child away at college, you want communication should the grid go down. That's why you need a satellite phone, worldviewtalk.com. But look what else they have. They also have solar generators. I have one of their solar generators. I have the Delta Echo 400, a solar generator. So I can, of course, charge my satellite phone. I can run my coffee pot. I can run my whole house if I want to. All the details are there at worldviewtalk.com, or use that number, 1-866-738-3224. They have very friendly operators that will explain to you their products, but you can explain to them what it is you're desiring to acquire. How much electricity are you wanting to generate with this solar generator? Well, they'll tell you what size you need. worldviewtalk.com, or 1-866-738-3224. All right, welcome back. Be sure to stay tuned for Crosstalk with Jim Schneider coming up at the top of the hour at vcy.org or on this VCY terrestrial station. And again, we appreciate WROS out of Jacksonville, Florida, also picking us up. So stay tuned for Crosstalk at vcy.org, vcy.org. Before I go to some brand new clips by Mr. Homan, let me play for you something from a little bit ago. Tom Homan put this out, and it's exactly what we were saying when we played the clip from, I think, 2010 of Alicio Medina. Listen to what he said and warned about some time ago.
Bed, they get a hearing in 35 days. Court records show 9 out of 10 people claim asylum, get order removal, they're gone. But if you release them and put them in a hotel room at $500 a night, their hearings could be 5, 7, 9 years if you pull out all appeals. And what are they hoping for then? That another Democrat administration is in power. They can award amnesty to millions.
They can award amnesty to millions.
It's about selling this country off for future political power.
It's about selling this country off for future political power.
That's what it was. The law clearly says if you arrive at our border without proper documentation, you shall be detained. Not maybe, not think about it, shall. And that's what President Trump's doing. Catch and release is over. That's what the law says, and that's what we've done.
Now, to those who want to be bleeding heart liberals, don't be crying when it is about future political power. And that political power includes stealing your house, stealing your 401k, stealing your Social Security that many of us have paid untold amounts of money into. It's our money. We paid it in. They should have let us keep it. When all of those things happen, don't say a word. Go live on the street and be happy. Because we're trying to tell you and are telling you now that this is the attempt of a color revolution in America that we've been warning about for years, to overthrow our government, install people into power, stack the Supreme Court, and turn us into a communist country. And they may choose to say at some point the revolution's over and we're going to go from communism to more communitarianism, which Henry Lamb used to describe as communism light. Either way, it ain't going to be pretty. Now, here is Tom Homan, who has arrived in the Twin Cities. And he's not there, as I said, for a photo ops. He's not there with his hair extensions and Kevlar vest and playing G.I. Joe. I wonder who else. I wonder who was playing G.I. Jane. Who would that have been? Here's Tom.
I begged.
You might need to boost the volume.
For the last 2 months on TV.
We're going to start over because the volume on a couple of these clips is really low. Here we go.
I begged for the last 2 months on TV for the rhetoric to stop. I said in March, if the rhetoric didn't stop, there's going to be bloodshed. And there has been. I wish I wasn't right. I don't want to see anybody die. Not officers, not members of the community, and not the targets of our operations. For the people out there who don't like what ICE is doing, if you want certain laws reformed, then take it up with Congress. Again, ICE is making this up. They're enforcing laws enacted by Congress and signed by the President. The same laws have been on the books for the last 6 presidents I worked for.
Last 6 presidents I worked for, these laws have been on the books. Didn't he get an award from Barack Obama, by the way? Huh? Has the media forgot that?
I started with President Reagan and ending with President Trump. Every administration, we enforce the same laws. If you don't like what ICE is doing, instead of protesting this building, go protest Congress. Tell me what changes. You have your First Amendment rights, I support that. You have the right to protest. I'm just asking you to keep it peaceful. But threatening law enforcement officers, engaging in impeding and obstruction and assault is never okay. And there will be zero tolerance. You interfere, impede, assault ICE officers, you will be arrested.
And of course, when you kick out their car taillights and attack their government property and then spit and carry on, bad things happen. All right. Here's another clip. You may have to boost this. We'll see.
I want to be clear.
Nope, this one's on the hotter side. They go back and forth. Here we go.
I want to be clear. I don't read a lot of social media. I don't read a lot of media. I don't believe half what I see. We are not surrendering the president's mission on immigration enforcement. Let's make that clear. Prioritization of criminal aliens doesn't mean that we forget about everybody else. That's just simply ridiculous. But when you have a criminal standing here and a non-criminal standing there, that criminal always should be targeted first because he's a significant concern to the safety and security of the community. By and large, for decades, ICE and CBP have carried out their duties with integrity, professionalism, and compassion. That remains the expectation under President Trump, and I will hold our agents and officers to that standard.
All right. So he's saying, look, we're going to have a standard. We're going to follow it. I think you might see things done a little differently under his leadership. And I think he's even admitted some things have not always gone right. This one might be a little bit lower volume. Here we go.
And then come here looking for total officer headlines. I come here looking for solutions. I do not want to hear that everything's been done here has been perfect. Nothing's ever perfect. Anything can be improved on. And what we've been working on is making this operation safer, more efficient, by the book. The mission is going to improve because of the changes we're making internally. No agency or organization is perfect. And President Trump and I, along with others in the administration, have recognized that certain improvements could and should be made.
That's right. So he's saying, look, I don't want to hear that this has been done perfectly. President Trump even was quoted as saying to a journalist, this Greg guy seems a little out there, maybe not a right fit. So he's taking responsibility up front, saying nothing's perfect. We're going to make changes. We'll see what's going on. This guy should have been in charge, in my opinion, from the first time. I'd love to know who pushed that Greg guy in there out of central casting as it looked. I think President Trump was set up for failure by who, I don't know. But I think Tom Homan is the right guy for this. The years of experience, even given an award by Barack Obama, I read the other day, done this for 6 presidents. And I know some of the people around him who are decent family people that love our country and are very friendly to our Constitution, love law and order. This should have been done the first time. And the only addition I would ask is, I think it's time for Kristi Noem to go and put someone like him in charge of the whole DHS. That's my opinion. All right. Thanks for listening. Take care. And we're back here on Worldview Tube and WROS. Now, let's go to the issue of the dollar. Again, to the dollar, as gold is still in the now $5,300 and something an ounce. Silver's around $107 or something an ounce. What is it at? Let me look here. I'm going to refresh the page, get the latest for you. All right. Gold is at $5,302. Silver's at $113.57. $113.69, according to that on the screen. I've told you earlier why some of this is happening. Listen to Ray Dalio. He's giving a warning again about the expansion of the money supply, debasement of our currency, which is going to continue under this administration. So you better get used to it. You better prepare for it. However you do, I don't give financial advice. I give financial opinion. But here he is. Listen to this.
Of the monetary system as we know it. It's not just the U.S. dollar. It's the fiat monetary currencies. So the UK, the euro, Japan, China all have similar debt problems and so on, and are dealing with the same interrelationships, which is the reason you're seeing gold being chosen by the central banks. They want a currency. Gold has always been the main currency, and it's the only non-fiat currency, in other words, not the currency that can't be printed, that they want. And so that's why you're seeing central banks move and sovereign wealth funds move to gold, and that's the nature of the shift of the monetary system.
All right. We've got too much money being printed, too much expansion, too many digits. And again, I mentioned the weaponization of the immigration system. to do many things, including, oh, well, you want these folks to stay? You don't want to see the nice people you know who've been here 20 years leave just because they came here illegally, but they've been good citizens, started businesses and trades and are productive. Okay, fine. We got to track them because we can't let them vote and we can't give them welfare of any kind, but they can stay, but we have to know who they are so that these systems aren't turned on for them. Well, how do you turn on or turn off systems for people? By getting everybody involved in the new system of digital ID. And their ID is not going to let them vote when their card is swapped or swiped. They're not going to apply for welfare if the system has them listed as illegal, who is now given the ability to live here but not be a voter, not get entitlement programs. Well, that same system can be used for you and me, folks. You can't vote. Why can't you vote? Well, you have been deemed a domestic terrorist. You have lost your right to vote. What? What did I do? You said the wrong thing about Islam. You said the wrong thing about the LGBTQ agenda. Now, Europe is way ahead of us. We've been telling you guys that for a while. I think you guys know that. But here is a new video. The British police, now we're told, are routinely stopping Americans entering the UK to take digital snapshot of their phones, looking for inappropriate social media messages. Islamic migrants arriving by boat face no inspection, but folks, they're, I guess, copying your phone and going through your phone. Listen. Got some audio with this, maybe? I don't know. Maybe there's no audio with it. I don't think there's any audio. It's just a report. All right. Why would you put up a video with no audio like that? We can all sit and read the subtitle, I guess. I don't know. Let's see what else we got here, guys. Just got a couple minutes left anyway. Oh, I meant to play this earlier. Here's this actor. Listen to him. Listen to him.
Time for a revolution.
Wait a minute. I want to back that up. I don't want you missing that. Here we go.
This is time for a revolution.
This is time for a revolution.
This is time for a revolution. It's time for it, and they don't even know that's what they're starting. You know, some very rich old white men are exerting their power to suppress our own people, thus creating a feeling of civil war in the streets, preparing the haters to hate, teaching them how to shoot. They're not even trained right, to kill. This is all a preparation for a very insidious problem that's happening in our world. And for me, I have to speak out that we will not be iced out. This is not going to happen. They can't take us all down. If the whole world showed up on Putin's doorstep or on the Iranians' doorstep or in Washington, it would stop. They'll kill 550 million, however, but the rest of us would survive with a new. This is time for a revolution. It's time for it, and they don't even know that's what they're starting. But we have.
It's time for a revolution. They don't even know what that's starting. There you go, a leftist actor in Hollywood. I don't know. It's going to be an interesting summer, is it not? Interesting summer coming up this summer. The summer of love, 2026. We'll see what happens. I just got a text from my friend Star Parker. I haven't heard from her in a while. Apparently she's running for Congress. Okay, so we're going to work to get her booked on the show. All right, thank you guys for watching and supporting worldviewfoundation.com, worldviewfoundation.com. Take care.
You're watching Worldview.
Tonight on the Worldview Report, the immigration battle escalates across the country as critics warn that Minnesota's resistance to federal enforcement has triggered a broader constitutional crisis, with other cities and states now following the same path. Overseas, President Trump announces a new U.S. naval deployment toward Iran, signaling rising